Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, everybody, to Cinema Royale. I'm Travis Hopson of Punch Drunk Critics, and I'm joined by John Nolan of Punch Drunk Critics, who will be, he is officially the co-host of this show with me now. This has been pretty much my solo show for, I think the first time I did Cinema Royale was almost 8 years ago, because it was the first year I went to Sundance. And because the very first episode I did was me. Well, one of the first episodes I did was me coming back from Sundance. So yeah, I've been doing this show by myself for a long time, and we've been on a little bit of a hiatus while John and I did Smash Cut over at Hashtag, and we're no longer doing that for the time being. We are, and I was like, well, you know what? Bring back Cinema Royale and keep John, and that way we can still do a show together, and we can do this one. So, and make this sort of the Punch Drunk Critics centerpiece podcast, I guess. But yeah, and I felt like, John, that there was no better way to do it than to kind of bring it back than to talk about Star Wars.
No,
right?
No, there couldn't be. And might I just say that whatever the intro song you used here is, I'm going to need to know what that is, because it's going to be my new ringtone.
It is. I can't remember the DJ who was messing around with Star Wars that time, but that is the official Star Wars episode intro music that I use. I've been using that intro music anytime the episode is going to be dedicated to Star Wars. I've been using that for years.
It's perfect.
By default. But Skywalker is out, and I guess the first thing I should start with. Let's start. Because you and I are going to talk about what we liked, what we didn't like. And I actually don't know all that much about how you feel about it, which is good. I really don't know about how you feel about the movie. I think you probably might like it better than I do, but I actually have no idea. We haven't talked about it, I don't know. But let's start with the box office, because the box office I literally just finished doing the box office about 5 minutes ago, right before the show started, and I just put it up and all that stuff. So it's over at punchdrunkcritics.com right now if you want to go and check out how this week's numbers broke down. And shocker, Star Wars is number one, of course. It had that big $40 million Thursday night debut. It had $90 million going in through Friday. And it ended the weekend with $175 million domestic, which, John, is pretty good. For anybody else, that would be amazing numbers. However, it's disappointing by Star Wars numbers, because this is the lowest of this new trilogy. I mean, the Last Jedi had $220 million 2 years ago, and The Force Awakens, which understandably was going to be the biggest one, had $248 million in 2015. It's trending down.
The excitement that went into The Force Awakens, with the new ownership, we'll say under new management, and being 14 years since the last Star Wars, and I think the most important thing was the acceptance of nerd culture in that time. I mean, between the time that Revenge of the Sith came out and The Force Awakens came out, the zeitgeist changed completely to being Star Wars is something for kids and dorks to it's something for everybody, and everybody loves this stuff, and everybody's admitting it now. So, you know, that obviously is the first one. I also feel like, you know, Star Wars has had it, and this is not my personal feeling, but Star Wars has had its day, and Marvel has now taken that most anticipated franchise title. So I'm not too surprised to hear it fall, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the worry that Disney is going to face is that Star Wars becomes, and it may not ever reach this point, but you never know. But you don't want it to reach the point where it becomes one of those niche sci-fi fantasy properties that we've seen so many of them bomb over the last few years, right? Like we've seen, we don't want to see it become another Blade Runner or another Alien, or these things that have this iconic status to them. But when you try to put out a sequel, it's like, yeah, the niche people, like the diehards, come out, but then nobody else does. We don't want Star Wars to reach. Right, Terminator is the most recent example. We don't want to see Star Wars reach that point. Solo, I think, scared them to the point where they're like, okay, that could be happening with Star Wars now. Like I think Solo scared them straight a little bit in regards to that.
Yeah.
And I think
in a good way,
this hiatus they're going on between now and the next movie, which is expected to be in 2022, couldn't come at a better time.
Yeah, I mean, it was an important thing that they learned from Solo. In that, I think going into that, they thought they just had the golden bullet, or the they were untouchable as long as they slapped the Star Wars label. And it's an important lesson for them to learn that Star Wars is Star Wars because of the care and the creativity and the intelligence that went into it, not because people think lightsabers are cool. So by seeing that, we put out Solo and it didn't break the bank, even though it had, arguably Star Wars' most popular character of all time as the lead, that lets them know there's more to it than just that, Yeah,
no, I agree. They've got some working to do. They've got some work to do going into whatever the future of Star Wars is going to be. And that's not a commentary on the film itself. That's just looking at the numbers. In terms of the reviews for the film, they've largely been split. 58% on Rotten Tomatoes right now, which does not sound good for a Star Wars movie. B+ Cinema Score. Look, I know Cinema Score. I talk about Cinema Score a lot when I do the box levels each week. Anything under an A for a Cinema Score is usually considered pretty bad. Yes, that means even a B+ seems like a step, like it's not great for Cinema Score. It's just kind of the way it goes.
Right.
So I mean, it's just. I don't know what Disney plans, what Disney's plans are. They have not made anything clear, and there's nothing in, I think, the Rise of Skywalker that alludes me to what they might be doing next. So, I mean, I have some idea of what could be coming next, but it's not necessarily like a specific thing. It's more like where the universe is going to be. Coming
well,
out.
I think, and we'll get into this more as we talk about the movie itself, because I don't want to spoil anything that I'm going to say. But like people are just in bated breath for what I'm going to say. But I think if they pay attention to what Skywalker has done, whether you liked it or not, there are certain things in there that we'll get into that really show the breadth of the domain that Star Wars can be. And it's kind of the same thing I say with Marvel movies sometimes, is that Marvel's transcended superhero movie. Superhero movie is no longer a genre. It's a cast set or a character set. So you can have a horror superhero movie. You can have a romance superhero movie. You can have a drama, a thriller, and all these things, all these normal genres, just with superheroes in them. And I think Skywalker, if nothing else, showed us that there is the chance for every genre to be represented inside the Star Wars universe. I mean, what's been created here, if they're unable to capitalize on the Star Wars universe and just the enormity of what it is and the characters and how deep and all the things you can do with it, then that will be the sign to me that creativity truly is dead in Hollywood. There is so much. You could take pretty much any character from the original trilogy and give them a deep and interesting backstory. And I'm talking right down to the pig-faced man in the cantina that they included in Rogue One. There's so much to it that if they're not able to take this universe in places, what they need to do is not take it to the same places. You can do Jedi, you can do smugglers, you can do bounty hunters, but you don't just do this one overarching galaxy including story that's concluded with the Rise of Skywalker.
What if Disney just said, you know what we're gonna do to come back? We're gonna remake A New Hope. Like, we're not gonna do any new stories. We're gonna remake these 3 trilogies.
You know what? I might become a food reviewer at that point if that's what happens, because I'll have no trust in cinema.
It would be so funny though. It's like, yeah, we decided to just remake them. We're gonna remake the.
Yeah.
We're gonna start with Phantom Menace though. We're gonna remake the Phantom Menace and we're gonna work them up all the way back to 9.
I don't even know what. Honestly, remaking the original the prequel trilogy. Not a good idea, not the worst idea. I was an apologist for so many years, but I recently rewatched them when I got Disney Plus, and I hadn't watched them in a few years. But after seeing the sequel trilogy that we just saw concluded, the enormity of the CG in that, the fact that they didn't blend any practical effects, the acting. I mean, Hayden Christensen, poor guy, he was horrible, and I apologized for him for a long time, but watching again, you have a perfect
bad actor
storm.
In those movies. He's not a bad actor in general. He's a bad actor in those movies, though.
Well, right. He's got a bad voice. I think we can all agree on that. And you've got a perfect storm of George Lucas's dialogue, which Harrison Ford has famously always complained about. You got George Lucas's dialogue and somebody that can't really deliver dialogue on another level. So it just comes into things that I love you so much it hurts, like that kind of stuff. And it's just. Anyway, we don't need to talk about the prequel trilogy.
It's pretty rough. Yeah, it's pretty rough. All right, let's talk about the movie that is out, and that is The Rise of Skywalker, the end of the Skywalker Saga. And yet, we're going to do spoilers here, folks. I mean, I don't like tiptoeing around. It always gets on my nerves. So we're going to talk spoilers here, and I imagine most people who are even bothering to listen to this, or who will listen to it in a future date, have already seen the movie mostly. I'm not too worried about that. You already know this episode's about the Rise of Skywalker, so you probably already seen the movie anyway. So we're gonna do spoilers.
Absolutely, thank you. Because otherwise, I don't know how I would get around saying what I like about it and what I don't like about it. Travis, did I lose you? I think we got some dead air here. I'm not sure what happened going on. I'm not sure if I'm on or he's on, so just hang with us for 1 second here, folks. All right, I'm reaching out to Travis. If I'm still on the air, hopefully he's doing the same thing and padding. If I'm still on the air, then I'm padding for you here as we try to figure out what's going on. No matter where we go, there's always some kind of technical issue. I'm going to try and drop out and call back in. 1 second, folks. All right, so Travis is going to call back in. So I'm assuming I'm on the air now. If not, I think I'm the problem here, folks. It seems that, whenever there's technical difficulties, I'm involved in the conversation. So let's all just blame it on me, and imagine it's me. I will say, while Travis is gone, I want to talk a bit about the state of Star Wars video games while we're waiting for him to come back in. anybody out there, if you've played Fallen Order, Jedi Fallen Order that's just come out, that game is great, but I'm really surprised at what a 180 that's been done with Battlefront 2. I mean, the story with Battlefront 2 when it first came out, it was just a horrible launch. I mean, personally, I didn't see that many problems with it, but I'm not that discerning with video games. As long as I can get in and shoot things, I'm pretty happy, but I know people had a lot of problems with it. Loot boxes, things like that. But they have gone through, and all you have to do is, if you don't have the game, just go on YouTube, because there's videos of it left and right. They have been continually adding new content for free for the last 2 years now, maybe 3 years. I'm trying to remember when the game actually came out, but they've been adding new content continuously for years to a game not to repeat myself, but it's included, and that's a big deal. And it shows that EA and the Star Wars franchises really understood the problem with loot boxes and things like that, and given us all this free content. So if you're a Battlefront 2 player, there is a Rise of Skywalker content pack that's out now. You get the awesome Sith Troopers. I just heard some music. So is Travis, you back on? No, I guess not yet. So the awesome Sith Troopers that we'll talk about in a few seconds while we review the movie, they're included. I say awesome, but really all they are is a red-skinned stormtrooper. Let me see here. Let me get him, see if he's getting back in. So the Sith Troopers are included. Kylo Ren with his mask. I thought it was really cool. Star Wars has always been something that's been based on two things: Japanese culture and Japanese movies, like the work of Akira Kurosawa, and World War II movies. You got the two halves. You get the Jedi, which obviously have samurai roots, and then you have the dogfighting, which obviously has the World War II dogfighting roots. So it is pretty cool what JJ did with Kylo Ren's mask in this movie. We're getting into deep, dark dork territory here, so forgive me. But if anybody remembers, he destroyed his Kylo Ren helmet in The Last Jedi. He puts it back together in this movie, welds it together, and there's red cracks all throughout it. It's actually it's based, at least it appears to be based on an ancient Japanese. It always sounds like a bad soap commercial. So let me just say an old Japanese culture or custom rather, where if something breaks, you put it back together with gold, and when you fill it in with gold, you have the lines from the cracks, so it becomes part of the character of whatever it is. Instead of a fault in it, it becomes part of the character of whatever it is you're fixing. And that's just a little neat touch that they did with Kylo's mask. It's got that really cool red vein look to it now. That's also in Battlefront 2, that new Kylo Ren skin. Fallen Order, I've been playing for some time now, and it's a lot of fun, but I don't think it's anything as good as I don't think it's at all as good as what everybody's making out to be. That it's the planet jumping, the lightsaber. I can hear you. We got Travis back. I was just talking to everybody about the history of Star Wars video games, basically. While you were getting back.
How the hell you get to that subject? How'd you get to that subject?
I don't know. I was just because I know earlier I was on my Xbox, and I noticed that Battlefront 2 has released a Rise of Skywalker pack, and I thought it's been really cool, the 180 they made, and starting out with these nickel and dime loot boxes, and now 2.5 years later giving out more and more free content with everything that comes out. But I also let everybody know that I think the commonality in technical issues is me. Whenever I'm around, there's some kind of technical problem. So
now I don't know what happened. This actually happened before a while back, and I don't know what it is, but it could be a blog talk thing that's going on, or it could be my headphones. I don't know, but you can hear me okay now, though, right?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
So
did you start talking about your thoughts about the Rise of Skywalker at all, or did you just start talking video games?
No. I kind of went right into video games because I didn't want to let anything out without anybody on here to talk. So I'll jump right into my thoughts. I know I had called you right after I wasn't able to make the screening the press had because of a D-bag ball. I probably shouldn't say that on the air. Anyway, I had a day off. It didn't happen. And I had texted you afterwards. I said, tell me just good or bad. And you said, well, I don't want to color your opinion. And normally I would think that means whoever's telling me that thinks it's bad. So why would they say that it's good? But you were famously poker faced. So I was like, well, he really doesn't know. After I saw it and started feeling the opinions, I was like, oh, Travis must have thought it was bad. I absolutely loved it. I can tell you that I can understand the complaints people have about it, and it all to me it all boils down to one thing, and that's no matter what you thought about Rian Johnson's Last Jedi, J.J. Abrams obviously had a place he wanted to go. He wasn't set to go there. That's nobody's fault. He wasn't even supposed to do the third movie, and he tried to cram at least a movie and a half into one movie. And the way he did that was by not so clever editing. He cut out things that would have made certain parts make a lot of sense. It didn't bother me enough to affect my enjoyment of the movie, but several times there's points where, like, Kylo Ren's on a spaceship across the galaxy, and then a scene and a half later he just shows up on whatever planet they're on. He just walks through the door. Usually that would be cut with a scene of him talking to some general saying, get us over to Exegol or whatever, and then you'd see them go into hyperspace, and then you'd see him arrive, and then he'd get off, and it would make a lot more sense. Because they cut out they saved the 2 or 3 minutes here and there doing that to allow for more content in the movie. It gets this teleported thing. The only other major problem I had with it was, and I know this is something that's echoed for a lot of people, is the inconsistent force powers. I don't see the need. I wasn't really on board with the whole Vision thing. The Kylo Rey party line they had going on, but even more so when it was okay in Last Jedi when he had a little ring on his hand or something, no big deal. But in this one, they're literally fighting through the Vision, and it doesn't make any sense. And that's the only problem I had. Other than that, this was the most fist-pumping, fan-servicey, which is a good thing in my opinion on this one, adventure romp. I had the chills and the inner excitement that I always look for when I really like a movie. I understand it had a lot of problems. Wasn't enough to make me not love it.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, and look, I ultimately gave it a positive review because I had enough fun with it. But it's impossible for me to look beyond what I loved about The Last Jedi and not see them treading all over it with this movie too. Like, I can't, like, it's also impossible for me to ignore the last 2 weeks of J.J. Abrams basically crapping on The Last Jedi. I mean, it's they tried to, like, stay away from that for months, and then, like, the last 2 weeks they're like, okay, yeah, just say whatever you want about it. And that bugged me because that movie was so challenging as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's why people didn't like it. And I was really upset to watch this movie kind of roll back everything. And I described it to a friend last night. I was like, it's like they wanted to say to Rian Johnson, we're going to fuck you, but we're going to put some Vaseline on it first. So it's like, it's
funny.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
that's kind of what it was. I mean, the whole thing with Rey's parentage, you're like, okay, so we'll get around that by not necessarily making it about parents, but we'll make it about this. And it's like, well, that's just lame. And to me, that's lame.
I think
I never bought into
the main problem.
I never bought into the assertion that others have made that you needed to have Palpatine in this movie. Like
you absolutely don't.
That bothered me. The excuses. Palpatine's been in every movie. He's been blah blah blah. So it would have been weird for him to not be in this. It never made sense to me because Anakin Skywalker's not in this. I don't see Darth Vader in this. He's been in every movie, and and so it's like, why is? Well, I mean, no. I mean, in terms of like, in terms of like being a figure like in the first two trilogies, you're going to tell me that Palpatine was more important than Anakin Skywalker? No, get out of here.
No,
get out of here. That's nonsense. And so for them to like be, well, we need to have Palpatine. No, you don't. And I feel like they did this. They brought Palpatine back simply because of what happened to Snoke in The Last Jedi. And Snoke would have been a guy who would have been around at the end of the movie. And maybe they would have revealed that Snoke was secretly like a Palpatine or something. But this was like their workaround. in order to make Rey somebody that related to somebody that we were all familiar with. Rey doesn't need to be related to anybody that we're familiar with.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why they got into their head.
It's a giant galaxy.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, here's
that would always be the case, and it makes Star Wars really, really small. And when people start worrying about what comes next after Star Wars, like what can they possibly do after the Skywalker Saga, this is the reason why. Because we haven't been allowed, like, even consider that there are people outside of this group. Like
something that The Mandalorian is doing amazingly every week. The Mandalorian has got me. One of my favorite characters in the Star Wars universe now is an Ugnaught. I never thought that would happen, but the funny thing about all this is, yeah, I know I'm not happy about it. The funniest thing about this trilogy is
who are afraid of Mandalorian spoilers.
Yeah. The funny thing about this whole trilogy now is that depending on who you talk to, it's almost become like a bitch fight between two directors. I think it's probably important for us to say that because it does seem to be your enjoyment of The Rise of Skywalker, for whatever reason, will heavily depend on your enjoyment of Last Jedi. I wasn't a fan of Last Jedi. Travis liked Last Jedi. I like Rise of Skywalker. You're not as much of a fan as I am, obviously. So, but a lot of things you're saying about Abrams, and it's inexcusable either way, what Abrams has said, and I agree. A lot of this did seem intentionally to roll back what Rian Johnson did, but people said the same thing about Rian Johnson. Like the whole Force Awakens built up to getting Luke this lightsaber, and then Rian Johnson, Luke throws away. It's like Rian Johnson saying, I'm not worried about that movie. And then, that big bad guy that you guys built up, fuck it, we're going to kill him halfway through. So it's and then you got Abrams comes back in the next movie and does the same thing basically. And it's become like a bitch fight between these two directors.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's not as if Rian Johnson is off the hook for what he did, but then again, I mean, I don't know. This all speaks to having
it's bigger than them.
Creative voice on a trilogy like this, like whether or not somebody else wrote or directed some of the other Star Wars movies, it was always George Lucas's voice, like no matter what. It was always his story, like no matter what. Always his
Kevin Feige situation,
right?
Having a Kevin Feige.
It is sort of like that, yeah. So it's like. But it's a mistake for them to do it the way they've done it, which is why I'm happy that in future trilogies, like Rian Johnson will have a trilogy of his own. Like, thank you, let him do what he wants to do. Whoever else is going to do a trilogy will probably have their own, probably have it to themselves. I mean, Lucasfilm in the Skywalker group, or the Star Wars group, are pretty close knit. Like if you watch like all the shows and the books, those things, they keep it. They have like a separate group that monitors the continuity of all those things and watches everything. And you would
Pablo
think,
Hidalgo. Pablo Hidalgo in his awesome hat is the keeper of the Star Wars Bible. If you've ever watched any kind of special features or anything, you must have seen Pablo Hidalgo. Right.
So you would think that kind of, and most of those things are driven by the movies, but you would think they would be tighter in continuity when it comes to the movies, but they don't seem to be, and that's what's kind of annoying by it. It's like they're like, well, we'll let the movies drive everything else, but what if the movies don't make sense like in relation to each other?
Well, and that's the thing, like like with the force powers issue, I have no problem introducing new force powers. I think like the healing one, while it was a little bit overpowered in this, I don't think there's a problem with having that because honestly, as a super Jedi nerd who's read pretty much all of the books that's on there, there's actually a documented place for that. That's been said before, but you can't just willy-nilly say, oh, it'd be cool to have him shoot lasers out of his ass, and that's a Jedi power. You can't do that. I mean, having a Bible, which not to keep going back to Marvel, but Marvel, the MCU has a Marvel Bible that all of the new film directors look through and reference and see who they can use and what that person can do. So you don't have Wolverine showing up with claws and laser eyes. It's there's a reason for it, and it's continuity. And you might think it's silly, but it becomes important.
Marvel movies have a Marvel Bible?
Yeah, every one of the directors goes through is given a book of all the characters that are available to them, and like basic synopsis, power levels, and all that kind of stuff for each character.
Okay, gotcha. I don't mind the expansion of Force powers so much. I actually think that's one of the better things that they've done. I think The Last Jedi probably did the most in terms of like expanding on those powers, and The Force Awakens. I think The Force Awakens is a fairly traditional approach to the Force powers, but even like whatever expansions there have been, I've always been kind of like surprised by people who think it's too far. When even in the earliest trilogies, we were getting Force ghosts and shit like that. I mean, that's about that's about as far as it goes. I mean, coming back as a Force ghost to me is no weirder than a Force user being able to heal another. Like those things are like one and the same as far as I'm concerned. Like they're saying, but you're giving of your own life force, not as if you can just willy nilly go heal. You're giving of your own life force, which is why the one tie-in between Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, and The Mandalorian was the use of the Force, Force healing power, which is why I think that.
And I gotta imagine that's why The Mandalorian came out early that week.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there was some kind of basis for it.
Absolutely, because I think that not necessarily that one specific ability, but that it's out there, and that new understanding of the Force is going to become important later, which is why I think those things were kind of played the way they were. But in terms of the Rise of Skywalker and why I still managed to ultimately enjoy it, I think it was great seeing Poe and Finn and Rey together, even though every time they were together, they rubbed their faces in it because they weren't together in the last movie. So we had multiple times where it's like, we're going to do this together. By the way, we're going to do this together. And it's like, okay, we get it. Okay, we got it. You weren't together in the last movie. We get it. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even catch on to that. But yeah,
but it was still cool to see them together. They're very funny, and I love when they're all fighting side by side. I think Adam Driver, this trilogy of movies has done. His performances as Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, has been amazing. And capping off what has just been an incredible career year for him. I think
you don't get any more than this.
No, it doesn't get better than this. When your final roll of the year is The Rise of Skywalker, and you've been in the other movies he's done this year, The Report and Marriage Story, incredible performance all around. And this is the way you cap it. It doesn't get better than this. I think his redemption story may be the best redemption story of any of the three trilogies. It has been fantastic. He's just great.
If I can cut in real quick on that, what I loved the most about what they did here is that it wasn't saved for the third part of the third act. Basically, about 3/4 of the way through the second act, he gets redeemed. So you've got the whole final act where he's basically a good guy. And now it's not, he's not working with them that much, but it just even to see him. I don't know how to explain it other than Vader. He just picked up the Emperor and threw him. But Ren, he actually, or Ben, I should say at this point, goes to a planet and he fights some bad guys and all is good guy, and he's doing it all with his blue lightsaber. And I just thought it was really cool to not just redeem him, but give him a chance to be that character for a little bit.
He's had and that's movies of dealing with this, like 3 movies of conflict, whereas Darth Vader basically had one movie of conflict.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference.
Oh, for sure. I'm just saying it was cool because you don't usually see that. If a redemption happens, it's always in the last few minutes, or the last 20 minutes, if that. And that the whole third act of this movie, I saw people complaining about the fan service, and I know generally we don't talk about what other people are talking about, but it bugged me. But I think it bugged me in a way that I feel less than as a critic because of movies like this, because I'm unable to put my fanboyness away. and be critical about certain things. Like I'll freely admit the problems in editing and pacing and things like that this movie had, but when it comes to enjoyment of the movie, I was all in from start to finish. There were very few times where I was out. And you get things like Chewie gets his medal. I mean, that's such an obvious, it's almost too on the nose fan service, but I still liked it, you know. Seeing Chewie, since we're going spoilers, you know, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows that Leia doesn't make it through the movie anyway, but seeing Chewie's reaction finding out Leia's gone, I mean, that was like literally heart-wrenching. And then that entire third act, man, Lando and the cavalry show up, and every single Easter egg you could possibly put in, from the Ghost in Rebels to all this other stuff, and this amazing turnaround.
Where was the Ghost? Where was the Ghost at?
So where the Millennium Falcon came in, it was just up and to the left of the Millennium Falcon.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
I mean, they didn't. Okay. Nobody said it's the Ghost, but it's the only ship like that you'd ever see in Star Wars.
Yeah, I know. And I knew it was probably. I knew when they showed that scene that there were probably ships from other shows that probably the Ghost. Like I knew it was probably in there, but I was like, I had time to look around for this thing. I'm sure somebody will screenshot it later. But you know, that kind of shit annoys me. It's like just put them in there then. So just put them in there.
You know what annoys me?
J.J. Abrams was teasing Ahsoka Tano was going to be in this film. Well, I mean,
she was in voice.
I suppose. I guess.
Yeah.
Was that her
voice?
The
voice. Yes. And so in the credits is the only way you really know. I mean, there's a scene in the movie where you hear the voices of Jedi pass, and there's like 9 voices.
Yeah. And I didn't get a chance to read all the voices. I saw some of them. I didn't missed hers. Yeah,
it was Mace Windu, Ayala Sakura, who was from the prequel trilogy, the hot blue Twi'lek alien, Luminara Unduli, Ahsoka Tano, Obi-Wan.
You mean the one who got shot in the back at Order 66?
Yeah, for some reason she made it. And I guess she was available, her voice actor. But you know what I hate the most about talking about this? And you do this to me every goddamn time. I'll go into talking about a movie with you, and I start to, as I'm talking about it, I start to point out things that do kind of bug me. Like, I just realized it doesn't really bug me. I still love the movie, but that whole third act.
I mean, look, man, you know why that keeps happening? It's because the movie's not that good.
Well, no. It's just because there's things that I choose to blissfully ignore that I have to confront, and that's like, just the FUs to Rian Johnson, whose Knives Out was amazing. The guy, filmmaker, don't get me wrong, but that whole third act, one of the parts I love the most, my favorite part, I just realized is a huge FU, because the end of Last Jedi is, we called everybody, nobody came, and the end of this one is, we called everybody came. Like, everybody came.
I don't even actually consider that to be an FU to The Last Jedi. I think that actually, that makes sense. Like that for them to have that, there was no other way. Look, I don't like that whole final act for the most part, because one, I think Palpatine's return was lousy and unnecessary.
Yeah.
Two, I thought his supposed tie to all of the Sith was a cheap way out in order to destroy them all just by killing like one dude. And I was like, okay, that's not a lame. Like, if you don't kill, if you kill, and this speaks to a larger problem with Star Wars that they have. And I was describing this to a friend a while back. This is the Order 66 problem that they have. Which is
or the control ship in the prequels, or in the control ship in Phantom Menace.
The Order 66 problem is that you have this thing that happened that supposedly wiped out the Jedi, and now you have Rey, who is supposedly the savior of the Jedi. Like, it's like she's the only one who can bring back the Jedi. But ever since Order 66, the only thing we have seen are Jedi upon Jedi upon Jedi who managed to survive it, and they're like still out there, just kind of out there. We're just out here. Like, the Jedi who somehow to survive Order 66, but like all of the most powerful Jedi, them dudes got blasted out in ships, or shot in the back, or hunted down by dudes who don't have force powers. And you're like, well, how are these lame ass Jedi still out here? And it's like, it's all these Jedi around. Like, book after book has some new Jedi, video game after video game has some new Jedi in it. And it's like,
but it's always like some
like Order 66 isn't important anymore. and nor do I feel like Rey is that important anymore because I know there's all these Jedi out here.
Well, okay, so I got something for that. I understand where you're coming from, but okay, so and this speaks to another problem that people have with Star Wars, and it's the answer is actually right there. Is everybody's always like, well, how were the Jedi like a myth in the original trilogy if there were 10,000 of them or whatever back in the prequel trilogy? Well, I don't think people, and Mandalorian has kind of showed us this a little bit. Mandalorian's actually given us a great view of the galaxy at large. Is that there's so many planets and so many places that are backwoods that the Jedi were only in the main part. It's like if I lived in some back country of Syria, I wouldn't know who Kendall Jenner was, and that would seem crazy to anybody who is in America. But there's plenty of places like that. And all the Jedi that got killed were the best ones because they went after them first. All the ones that were survived were Padawans or not Jedi Knights.
Some of them
because they
were,
escaped while they were killing the good
guys. But here's the thing. But that's mostly true. You're mostly right about that. But with the Mandalorian it shows us, because I brought up that same thing to somebody once too, and I was like, well, the thing about the prequels was that the Jedi were prevalent, and they were like even part of government. Like they were intertwined with
FBI,
government.
basically.
So they were known, right? They weren't a secret. But what the Mandalorian has shown us is that certain things remain a myth. Like no one knows what the fuck a Yoda is, right? No one knows what it is. And just because the Jedi were known, very few of them ever had a reason to ever see them use their Force powers. Right, like you may know the Jedi are part of the government, working with the government, but unless you're like in the middle of a fight where you picked a fight with a Jedi like an idiot, you would never actually see them use their Force powers. They would be just these dudes walking around. It's like when I see a cop next to me, like I know the cop is there, but have I ever seen him use his gun? No, right? It's like that. Yeah. That's kind of how it is. So you get to all these other worlds, and they've heard stories, but have they ever seen it in action? No. And that's why you see guys like Poe and Finn, like, I don't know if I believe it or not, but, and then they have to see it for themselves. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. And since I brought him up, how do you feel about the way they made it clear that Finn has Force powers? Because that's clearly what they were saying, right?
I didn't catch that. What do you mean?
Are you kidding? The whole thing was
Finn.
No,
I'm not.
Finn was, especially after seeing it the second time, Finn clearly has Force powers.
I mean,
Finn.
I'm firmly believing. Go ahead.
Well, Finn has Force powers. That they spent the whole movie trying to tell us that. So it begins when he doesn't tell Rey that thing he was about to tell Rey before they sunk into the sand. That was the first thing. Which, by the way, he never told her what that was.
I
he never
just
said
thought it was "I love you."
No, that's
I
not
just
it.
assumed it was he loved him.
It's that he has Force powers. Then there's a scene later on where he's arguing with Poe, and Poe's like, I don't understand what her problem is, and Finn's like basically like, well, you don't know what she's going through, and Poe's like, well, how do you know? And he's like, I know, and Leia knows. I know what she's going through. Leia knows what she's going through, and so do I. There's no secret other than the fact that they all would have Force powers. But then later on, he's able to sense Rey. When no one else can, he's able to sense her. And that's like the dead giveaway that he has Force powers.
All right, I need to see this again. I mean, not that I wasn't going to anyway,
there's
but
3 explicit scenes that basically spell out that he has Force powers. So to me, I mean, I don't mind it. I actually think it's fine that he has Force powers. It's fine. It was just interesting the way they did it without coming out and just flat out saying it, like having him wield a saber. But then again, they had him do that in the first movie.
That's true. I mean,
they had him wield a saber in the first movie.
I mean, I would
almost
prefer
nobody
to see...
wields a saber in these movies who does not have Force powers. Like it doesn't. It's not just. It's not just something you do. Like they don't just do that for no reason. And I feel like if J.J. Abrams had done all 3 movies, he would have teased it more in the second film. And he kind of just, which Rian Johnson probably didn't pick up on any of it, so he just didn't do it. But in the third movie, J.J. Abrams put it all in there. He put it all into this movie, like Finn's Force abilities.
Well, that's what this really felt like. And when we get back to the problems of the movie, this movie felt like JJ, whether it was immediately after he didn't sign on for Last Jedi or after he saw Last Jedi, whatever it was, he had a lot of regret of saying, damn, I had something I could have done with this. And then he tried to get all of that in. Now, I mean, number one, only Jedi build lightsabers. It's because of the Kyber crystal, but also because giving a non-force sensitive person a lightsaber is like giving a toddler a machine gun. You don't know how it's going to turn out, but you're pretty sure it's going to be in the paper, so because you can cut limbs off and all that stuff. But what did you think about Kerry Russell's awesomely cool looking Zori Bliss? And then they never even took her helmet off. I was shocked they never took her helmet off. All we got was her eyes.
We got to see her eyes, though, and her eyes are beautiful.
They are.
They are beautiful.
Felicity's got my money.
Zori Bliss will go down as another very cool character who didn't get enough to do. It's just one of those things. It's one of those things Star Wars does, man. I mean, they introduce these characters basically for merchandising aspects now. It's like that. It's like that droid Dio that they introduced, who could have been any other freaking droid. Like they could have had that droid be C-3PO or BB-8 or R2. But no, they wanted to add another droid that they could sell 1 million Funkos with or something. I mean, so that's I was like, that's part's kind of
well. Until I saw the movie, I was ready to plop down my $150 for the fully automated Dio they have at Target. But because we got a BB-8 at the house.
You're the target. You're the target.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I mean, I ended up having, like I said, more fun with it than not. I can't escape the fact that like what it does to the previous film, and I also can't escape the fact that it's also kind of in terms of Star Wars movies, it's kind of flat looking. This is not J.J. Abrams' most impressive movie visually, I don't think. There's a couple of scenes, but to me, there's nothing in there that made me go, wow. There was no scene like that in this movie for me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I loved about this movie that I didn't get in The Last Jedi was, nobody really liked Canto Bight, and that was the only place other than space that we really got, Crate. But I loved how it was planet jumping. There was a little too much planet jumping, but I loved that we got to see all these different locales. And I did love that, and it's something I want to mention before I forget and we don't talk about it, is, I mentioned way back at the beginning of this episode that I thought Rise of Skywalker gave us a peek into how different genres could be represented in the Star Wars universe. And I don't care what you thought about the movie. I don't care who you are. That opening scene when we first go to see Palpatine is terrifying. And that shows you that there's things in the Star Wars universe that you could have, maybe not a straight up horror movie, but you could have a very dark sci-fi horror type movie in Star Wars. I mean, that whole scene, the way the light's going around, you got the clone Snokes in the backlight, no matter how stupid you thought that was, it was creepy. You have Palpatine whose face is being lit every few minutes. I mean, it was super creepy, and that was great. The design of Exegol was okay.
It was very cool. That part.
Yeah,
I agree. That part was pretty cool. But to also admit that the first part of this movie felt like a video game plot, right? Because like it's like, I gotta go find this wayfinder thing. Okay, well it's in a box somewhere. Okay, get it. And I gotta find this dagger that looks like the medallion from like Goonies. Like it's like
yeah.
And I was like, really? It's like, who made this plot? Like, this is a video game plot.
And by the way, we gotta solve puzzles to get these things too.
This is not a Star Wars plot. This is a video game plot.
Okay, I'll concede to that.
It was just super campy. I was like, are you serious? This is the story right now? Like, we're just gonna go find this item, and the dagger leads you. Oh, the dagger is like perfectly shaped like the wreckage from the Death Star. It's like, what? Get the hell out of here, man. Get this shit out of here.
See, I'm figuring out what it is. I am blissfully ignorant when I'm watching movies, apparently. Because that shit just happens, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever, that's cool. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, of course it would fit in. That has to happen there.
That plot was just ridiculous. And I was like, all right, okay, whatever. But
did you think it was?
The second time I watched it, I was like, I was with my buddy who also was not a huge fan of it, so we're just kind of picking at the movie when we were watching it. We were just laughing at that part when she took out the dagger and was like holding it up to the sky. We were like, man, get this shit out of here.
I'm sure on second
there
view,
were other people in the place
that I see.
Too.
Yeah. What did you think about, speaking of shoehorning things in, what did you think about, the Star Wars universe is at the same time incredibly diverse and not diverse at all by human standards, What did you think about the? Did you feel it was shoehorned in at the end when Lando,
Yes.
one of the 3 black
Yes.
people in the Star Wars universe, goes up to
Yes.
the one of the
Yes.
other 3 black people in the Star Wars universe? Yeah.
I was waiting for
And
you
they
to
killed
bring it
Mace
up.
Windu, so.
If you didn't.
Well, because even
Like,
as the suburban white dude, I'm like, oh wow, really? They're gonna do that?
Yeah.
But
to do it at the 2-minute warning of the movie, when you know nothing can really come of it, unless they're going to have a Janna spin-off movie, like Janna and Lando spin-off movie. Oh, that's probably the next book that's coming out, Janna and Lando. Stuff like
that. I know you're joking, but that's the future of the Star Wars franchise. Is stuff like that, like Janna and her group of rebels, former stormtroopers that defected and went off and they're doing whatever they're doing. I mean, that's a cool story to me. I mean, Lando, one of the coolest parts of this movie, I thought, was a throwaway line where when they go and they meet Lando, he's like, oh yeah, me and Luke went and looking for this. So you get this tease of these adventures that happen after Return of the Jedi. Luke and Lando went out by themselves and did something. They were hanging out. That's cool to me.
Yeah, absolutely, and it makes sense. We only got about 9 minutes left in the show, so I want to get your thoughts on how they handled Carrie Fisher's final performance, how they handled Leia in this film. What did you think about it? Because for me, the opening scenes with her and Rey looked really awkward. And I know they had stock footage to use, and that's what they had to do for most of this. But to me, it came off. They did the best of what they could. I'm not going to knock them for it, and I certainly don't knock the film for that. For doing what the best they could to give people their final scenes with Carrie Fisher. I don't knock them for that. But they did look a little awkward, and I felt like the way that Leia's final moments happened in the movie. To me, I thought that suffered from a lot of the same thing the rest of the movie suffered from, which is that we don't have the time to spend to give it the emotion it deserves. That happens in a lot of Star Wars movies. It goes double for this movie. There's a lot of moments like that don't get the time they need. There's another death that happens later on in the movie where it's like, oh well, you're dead. That sucks. But I got to fly away and get away from here. And it's like, and there's a lot of stuff like that happened in this movie, but I feel like it was especially sad in the case of Leia, because people around me were really, really in tears, and it's like, oh, but we can't really deal with it. So.
Yeah, had they not had the scene with Chewie's reaction, I would have thought that it was a total waste. I mean, the thing about Leia's passing in the movie is that it's not really explained. I mean, it happens at a point where it's connected to something else, but they don't really explain why or how. Her life force wasn't traded. At least I didn't get that feeling, because Rey was the one trading life forces at that point. I thought that they did, like you said, you said it really well. They did the best they could with what they had. I think that they just should have come to terms with the fact that due to the situation, she could not be a main character. I think if they had taken out 3 or 4 of the scenes and kept her more like being, just using the stuff that was going to look right. There are scenes like when they shoehorn in entire plot points, like Rey doesn't want to take Luke's lightsaber with her. So Leia says, no, you have to take it. Just so that they can reuse that shot from the trailer in The Force Awakens, where, if you remember the trailer for The Force Awakens, there's a shot of Leia handing the lightsaber to Maz Kanata. They did that whole thing just so they could reuse that shot, reuse that scene. And it's all shoehorned in. And then there are some parts where it's very obvious that, the one of the things they do when they don't have these people is obviously they need to be creative with their shots. So they shoot from behind a lot. And they just did it a little bit too much to the point where it was noticeable. Even to somebody who is blissfully ignorant like me, noticed that there was a lot of behind the head shots for Leia. I think there was a way that they could have done it. They could have minimized her role a little bit while still being completely respectful and keeping her importance to the plot. And then they should have done something a little bit more with the end. With her end, I should say.
Yep, I agree. All right, so we are coming down to the end of the show. We got about 6 minutes left, man. And it's been fun.
There's one more thing.
What's up?
One more thing. I can't believe we didn't miss it. Same part. What did you think of the big cameo of somebody that I never thought I'd see back? I don't know if we want to spoil it or not, but somebody that was very happy to get out of Star Wars came back.
I feel
what I'm talking
like,
about?
it's Harrison Ford, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we spoiled enough. I guess I can just say it.
we
Yeah.
spoiled-
I thought
we've
that was
already
a
told
great
people,
moment.
we already talked people there'd be spoilers. No, it was a great moment. I feel like if Carrie Fisher were alive, that scene would have had both him and Leia in it. I feel like that would have happened.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I feel like it would have been both of them together to win, both of them together to win to turn their son back. It would have been the two of them,
Right.
not just the. But they did it the way they could do it, and I thought it worked really well too. Like I said, the whole redemption arc for Ben Solo was really well done, and that was a big part of it. Yeah, that part really worked for me. Yeah, so we're down to the last 5 minutes. We were gonna do our like rank our Star Wars movies, but I don't know if we have time anymore.
We can run through it real quick.
Okay, you want to do yours?
Yeah. Best.
Right,
Yeah, you know, I'm gonna get shit on this, but number one's Return of the Jedi. Number two's Empire.
Wait, time
three.
out. Your number one is Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
With Ewoks in it.
Like I said, blissfully ignorant.
Is this Return of the Jedi? Is this like an edited Return of the Jedi with like no Ewoks in it? Like when I watched.
No, this is the Return of the Jedi with the greatest dogfights committed to space, and with the greatest lightsaber battles and the most just serious ending. I mean, the Ewoks suck. Right. If they had been Wookiees, best movie of all time.
There needs to be a scene where Ewoks and Porgs are both thrown into a fire, like Rey was about to throw the lightsaber into the fire. Like she should have just like forced through like a couple Porgs and like reached all the way to Endor and like threw pulled some Ewoks from Endor.
Yeah.
Flew them over to where she was.
So I'm guessing you were really happy they made an appearance.
If you're gonna expand the Force powers in that way, expand it in a funny way. Like I was going to reach over to Endor.
So you were happy that they made an appearance in this movie then?
I was not. They lost the point for that. Reach over and grab Wicket and just throw him into a fire. Fantastic. All right, go ahead, man. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
All right, so we got Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Force Awakens. Oh, wait, does this include Rogue One or just Skywalker Saga?
Yes, it's all of them, all 11.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Rogue One, Force Awakens, A New Hope, Rise of Skywalker, Revenge of the Sith, Last Jedi, Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace, Solo.
Okay. All right. Solo. Okay. Mine, number one, The Empire Strikes Back. Number two, The Last Jedi. 3, A New Hope. 4, Rogue One. 5, The Force Awakens. 6, Revenge of the Sith. 7, Return of the Jedi. 8 is Solo. 9 is The Rise of Skywalker. 10 is Attack of the Clones. And holding up the bottom is The Phantom Menace.
I think that has to be the bottom of everybody's. That's a rule.
I think a lot of people probably put Solo at the bottom just because, I don't know.
You know, Solo wasn't as bad as Phantom Menace. I just forget about it because it's inconsequential.
Not even a bad movie. Solo's not even a bad movie. It's just that it did the worst. But it's not, which has stigmatized it. But it has not.
It's the most forgettable of all of them.
It's far from a bad movie. And when you were talking earlier about Star Wars taking on other genres, well, the reason why you might not see that is because of Solo. Because they kind of tried that with Solo, and people didn't go see it.
But you know what? If they lose, if Mickey Mouse loses his balls that quickly, he doesn't deserve to be making films. To be honest, he doesn't deserve to have the properties he does if he's going to lose his balls that quickly.
I agree. So I may go see this one more time. I've seen it twice now. I may go, as long as I'm at the IMAX, I may go check it out one more time. You know,
was it that much better in IMAX?
Everything's better at the Smithsonian IMAX. I mean, that's just the truth. Everything is better there. So I might go see it.
Biggest screen I've ever seen in my life.
All right, we got 1 minute left, man. So this has been a lot of fun. Welcome back to Cinema Royale, everybody who's tuning in either live now or in our podcast. And John, it's good to have you aboard, man. We're going to try to do this every week. I don't know if we'll start doing it regularly as of next week or not, but in the very near future, we're going to be doing this every single week.
Well, I'm down. I love doing this, man, and I appreciate you having me back on.
course, man. Absolutely. So we'll be back soon with the next episode of Cinema Royale. I'll be back actually in a few days with my interview with Sam Mendes and Christy Cairns Wilson for 1917. So everybody hope will listen to that in a couple of days. All right, John, have a good rest of the weekend, my friend. I'll see you soon.
All right, man. Take it easy, everybody.
All right,
Later.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.